For a short time, Judson returns to Rangoon. Missionary reinforcements arrive. He takes up his wife. They head up the river again to Ava. But a dark cloud is brewing on the horizon. This is now entering the darkest period of Judson's life. Because on the British and Burmese border, strife was beginning to erupt. The Burmans were making hasty offensives against the British outpost, and they sparked all-out war in 1824. And the king didn't care anymore, whether you said you were American, Portuguese, there were some Greeks, some Armenian traders living in Burma. They were all rounded up. They were all thrown in several fetters, chained to a ceiling, and left hanging from the feet to die. Now the king, like most of Burma, thought, this will be quick and easy. Who are these British anyway? Well, the British came with a well-disciplined army, as the British were known, especially in the 1800s, superior armoury, and the British started what seemed to be an irrepressible assault up the Irrawaddy River, closer and closer to the capital. Every city the British came upon, the city fell, the army was thwarted. There are stories of Burmese armies of 50,000 falling before a mere 7,000 British troops. This war is, again, it's its own story. If you want to study this particular British-Burmese war, it's called the Anglo-Burma War. It's a staggering account. The British are on the march. Now, initially, the Burmese, they mock and scowl. They feel no alarm, no threat, but they are dreadfully mistaken. The English have a comedically small force, just a few thousand well-drilled men. They thwart the Burmese defences and they start their march up the Irrawaddy. All fair-skinned people are immediately seized because as far as this king, this emperor and the Burmese are concerned, there is no way the British are having this success. This can't be real. But every time the British would have another offensive, another assault and be successful, they thought there are spies among us. They're using some magic or some tactics that we don't know of. And so that's why men like Judson and others were taken. People were killed. Anyone that had light, fair skin that was considered to be a co-conspirator with the English was killed. And Judson was taken to what's known as the death camp in Burmese. It's the Ong Pen La, where no one ever escaped. And again, the stories, this whole episode of a story is just unbelievable. Anne gives birth to another little girl. Her name's Maria. And Anne is desperately trying to at least feed her husband and keep him alive while he's in this prison. All night, they would shackle the feet up against the ceiling. And as the feet were bloodied and raw, very little skin left, the mosquitoes would come in off the marshes and just feast upon the prisoner's skin all night long. And they would wake up during the next day and they would barely survive. There's this one moment, again, I shouldn't be sidetracked because we have no time. We're already out of time. We're 12 years into his 50-year life. I knew this would happen. At one point, his tormentors, they're so, what's the word, like maligning in their perniciousness to create suffering. They brought this large cat, this big tiger in this cage and just put it right in the middle of the prison, threatening that each day we're just going to feed another prisoner to this particular cat. Now, Burma was pretty infested with large tigers, Bengal tigers of the day. And so this was a fairly terrifying event. But they never fed this particular animal, and it would just moan and whine all day in this reinforced cage. They had to sit there and watch this thing die of starvation over several weeks, wondering if at any point one of them was going to get thrown in to get eaten by this beast of the jungle. The stories are unbelievable. They kept getting dragged out and marched across the blisteringly hot sand for miles at a time. At one point, one of the Greek traders that was in prison with Judson just dropped dead on one of these marches. Just couldn't survive. Anne gets really sick. Anne can't feed this child. She goes through the village begging a wet nurse to take the baby to feed her. This whole time, Judson is just a mess. He's almost ready to give up on the whole missionary thing. 18 months has taken its toll. Anne is desperately ill. Baby Maria is desperately ill. And Judson is finally released because the English just make it a condition of surrender. They've marched all the way to the capital now, 500 miles into the interior of Burma. And the Burmans are finally desperate. Several times they drag all the prisoners before the executioner, sharpens his blade. He's ready to cut their heads off. And the English cannonballs start firing through the building. The English have finally arrived, and one of the conditions is bring out those missionaries that you've so ill-treated, and we will take them on and we will honour them. So Judson is finally released.